right, man. So we talked about doing this for a while, a couple months at least. So this is the Under the Rug podcast. We're finally starting it off.
Under the Rug podcast.
Under the Rug podcast. I think the first one obviously is just going to be us, but we hope to get some other people on here. Maybe even on the next one. I think we talked about doing it at least every month. So this is our first one. As we're sitting here, we'll probably release this in a couple weeks, but it's the first week of December. So that's when our first one is. So tell everybody what it's about. What's the Under the Rug? It was your idea initially, so you do a good job of explaining it. What's the Under the Rug podcast about?
Man, Under the Rug podcast is mainly discuss me being a home inspector, you being in real estate. That's how we kind of naturally connected. I feel like we have known each other going on for 4 years now. So
yep. Seems longer than that.
But Under the Rug podcast, man, just to talk about all the things that typically get swept under the rug in real estate, in home inspection, because as an inspector, you're there with me as a photographer. You're seeing me basically take all of these things under the rug and I gotta explain it all to a client in the most professional and kind of peace of mind way, right? Yeah. All with a flow. So saying that, Under the Rug podcast. Also business, entrepreneurship, kind of give a glimpse on us, what we've been through as a team, as individuals, how we was able to collab as a team and grow individually as well, and just pure entrepreneurship, being able to work our own jobs, not having a 9-to-5, not saying that there's nothing wrong with that, but really being able to develop our own personal plan, what we want to do with our careers, and really being able to bring that to light. To help other people elevate and hopefully motivate those that was someone in the same situation that we were in. So just kind of talk a little bit, like I said, a little nitty gritty, what goes on with the inspection and real estate world, but at the same time, wrapping that in and kind of bringing our businesses to the light as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I like the name when you first said it, especially. It's almost kind of an ironic name because we're not trying to sweep anything under the rug ourselves. We're trying to figure out what those things are and kind of get them out. But, I feel like every industry, every business has those sorts of things where you get better at it. You get better at what you do. You learn more about your field, and you start to see more of those things where things kind of get swept under the rug.
You see them all day, bro.
You see them all the time. And then you can't exactly just pull the rug out and just flip it over and reveal everything that's there. You a lot of times you have to find a way to kind of pull things out piece by piece, and it's kind of a delicate walk, especially with inspections and real estate, where we're not trying to cause any sort of alarms or anything like that with people, but honesty is key. Obviously, when it comes to inspections, you have a responsibility to your clients to be honest and
communication and clarity.
But there's that that kind of balance, which I'm sure will bring up a lot between the clients and the realtor and everybody involved in trying to just figure out how to
make everybody happy, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So I like the idea. I think it's going to be good. I think there's always something to talk about because there's always things being swept under the rug. I think that it's going to be good to get people on and talk about. We'll learn a lot about different businesses, and I just think it's a very relatable subject for everybody. Anybody, even if you just work a 9-to-5, I think.
Agreed.
We did that obviously before we got to where we are now, and I almost feel like there's more of that in the 9-to-5s, and there's less you can do about it,
And even with the 9-to-5, if you're working at a hospital, wherever you at, wherever your 9-to-5 is, hopefully this show is able to inspire you to be the best wherever you are.
Absolutely.
And we are where we are because this is where we want to be. So wherever you want to be, to have your hustle, your income, whatever you want to call it, just if that's your purpose, and I think that's another goal is to basically reveal our purposes and bringing that to light with Under the Rug. And like you said, just kind of taking everything out from underneath the rug, not just the ugly and everything like that. So definitely a blessing, bro.
Yeah, and I think people will also learn that, as we've learned, that it's just different things under the rug from the 9 to 5 to entrepreneurship. I mean, it's different, and it's kind of there's things that we deal with that. I guess the point is it never stops. There's always there's always something to deal with. It's just that when you do it for yourself, a lot of times, I guess to put it, in a funny way, the juice is worth the squeeze when you're an entrepreneur. Some of these things we deal with, we get to control some of our own hours. We get to control our rates a little bit more. Get to control more. That just makes it worth dealing with some of these things.
Agreed.
So
agreed.
Definitely. So that's good. Yeah, that's what the podcast is all about. Hopefully people will want to be on it. I think that they will. We got a lot of friends in business. We do a lot of networking. Tend to spend a lot more time around people that are running their own business as time goes on. So hopefully we can get a blend of both. Though I'd like to get some people on here that are doing the 9 to 5, maybe curious about entrepreneurship and that sort of thing. So how was business for you last month?
Man, so last month, like we said, we just finished up November, right? So as an inspector, typically the holiday months, November, basically through January, somewhat slows down, or you'll have 20 inspections, but only within the 10-day period, and then the other 20 days out the month is super quiet.
Yeah.
But business last month was well, man. Bringing Marcus on board. Like I said, he's been training with me now for the past few months. Bringing on the first employee, growing out the team is definitely a blessing. So last month was pretty good to us, man. Like I said, obviously the summer months are the best months but for November, for us to do the numbers that we did in a slow month, only add motivation and inspiration to the game next year. Cause just like a piece of wit, entrepreneurship, we're kind of illustrators to it to a certain point. We're drawing out a picture in our head what we want to happen, and that's why most businesses struggle that first year, right? It's like, cause you painted a picture, but it's not going to happen like you want it to. But then you take that information, what you learned last year, and you continue adding to that illustration, and eventually everybody gets to see the picture. At some point, bro. So last month I was able to continue being able to do that, and just bring more things to the bigger picture, and everything. So everybody knows I'm the home inspector. But tell us a little bit more, bro, how business was for you last month, and just kind of more about your business and your overall product.
Yeah. So you know me, but for a lot of people that don't, I have my iron in a lot of fires. So I got licensed in real estate back in 2018, very end of 2018, December around this time. We met shortly thereafter that, and I had some deals in real estate. I found that it wasn't exactly a passion for me. So for me, not realtors aren't on a salary. We don't get paid anything, for just for showing up. It's just you got to make the business happen. And I had some friends and family that I was fortunate enough came to me, took a chance on me, and used me for real estate, and it all went really well. But I did actually it was either the month before. Last month or the month prior, I put my real estate license into referral, meaning that I can pull it out at any time. I still did my continuing education, so I'm still in some sense licensed. It's just not an active license. I can pull it out at any time if I want to. I decided to give my another business kind of more attention. We do obviously a lot of marketing. I do your website. Do some photography and things like that. The creative pursuits definitely pull my attention. I can't get away from it. And a big part of that for me has been websites. I decided to kind of put the real estate aside just a little bit, still leaving it in the back pocket if I ever need to. But I really want to focus on websites. There's a time where I thought maybe it was an oversaturated industry. There's too many people doing it, but. You can say that about anything.
You can
say that about anything. It's not necessarily about how many. I mean, there's too many realtors. Any realtor will tell you that. There's way more realtors here in this area, in most areas, than there is houses to be selling. So, any field like that, you can run into that. But I think it's a matter of quality, and there's not necessarily people out there in all industries that do everything to top quality. And so
quality is key, bro.
Quality is key. So it's something I've done for a long time, long since before you knew me. I mean, I think I made my first website when I was 13 or 14. You know, and they were different than they are today, but. You know, I started doing it when I was pretty young, and I've kind of gone on and off with it. But it's just something that I guess that I like to think I'm okay at. So you know, I can do it efficiently, and it's also something that I realize that I think I'm good enough at to where I can bring other people on and teach them that. You know, it's going to be a long time with something like real estate before I can really do that. You know, I'm an amateur when it comes to that. I still need mentors in that field and everything.
I gotta start somewhere, bro.
Yeah, definitely. But you know, I realized if I want to grow a business, I think I want to pick something that I've done for a while. I have a pretty good head on, that I have a really good top-down view of, that you just don't get without doing it for a long time. You know, so and I learned that it's just too hard to try and chase too many things at once. You just can't put your whole heart into it. So. So I kind of picked, you know, the stuff that we're doing to really focus on that a little bit more, and just to see where that gets me. And so, so that said, though, it's been good, man. I have, you know, you've been gracious to give me so many referrals.
Yes, sir.
The one mistake, we've talked about this before, but the one mistake I've made in business so far has just been kind of charging to pay the bills. You know, that's one thing. Like I think most entrepreneurs learn. I feel like you got a tip on that real early, because you didn't do that from the start. I mean, we've raised prices, as you know, the prices of pretty much everything have gone up over the past 2 or 3 years. And I think that you started at a point where that wasn't really so much an issue. You know, you definitely got that tip before I did. I had to learn that one the hard way, where, you know, I was so happy to get out of working a 9 to 5 and just get into freelance things that I could do, and I could bill way more than I would ever make for somebody just paying me an hourly rate, and that seemed like, you know, how can I lose? And you know, it kept the bills paid, kept the lights on, but I learned very quickly that if you don't kind of bill as if you're building a business, then you just can't. You know, I don't have anything in the reserves to bring somebody on. And now, you know, that kind of initial start that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, where they kind of start lower and they do a lot of wearing multiple hats, where very soon, you know, they hope to add people to the team to do those hats. You know, you have already added somebody to do a lot of the administrative work. You've already added another inspector coming on the team. I have not saved the money necessarily to do that, and that's been something that I just had to learn, you know. I had to learn that the hard way, so now I got to go back and do a little bit of that, wear multiple hats, and kind of going through that grind again, just to do it the right way. It's tough because you can lose business that way, you know. You can throw a quote out that's too high for the person that you're quoting, and they might say no, and you got to be able to. You gotta be able to say okay.
You gotta stick to your guns.
Yeah.
You have to, bro.
You have to, because you know I might need that money, but even more than that, I need to be consistent, and I have to set a rate that I can actually afford to just build that business. It's not just about paying my bills and lining my pockets. It's about creating a system that can generate revenue and can, you know, provide an income for more people than just me. You know.
Agreed.
And the only way to do that is basically just to pretend as if that's already the case. You know, some of it's got to go into the tax account. Some of it's got to go into the savings account. Some of it, sure, can be used to pay us as a business owner, but it can't be, you know, from client to pocket. It just doesn't work that way for long.
It's crazy you mentioned that, bro. My whole first year, that's what I did. At least for like the first 9 months. I literally cause at that time I was like making $300 a house. I'd take it, go put it in the bank. And you know, then with my business coach Chris, he was like, "That ain't how the way it's supposed to be done." But at the time, I was still working my 9 to 5, you know, doing security, bro. And after I graduated from Spring GR, they gave me more of the discipline I needed. And being like, hey, you got to be a future forward thinker with your money once you get it. Just because you get $600 a house don't mean that whole $600 is yours. You take your 30 or 40%, you take the other 15, 20, you got to put it in the tax account, the other, you got to pay bills, you got to, you know, build a team and do different things like that. So
Yeah.
But I feel like all business owners go through that struggle.
Some form or another.
At our first business. Now, you may not do it your second or third, but your first time doing business, I think, naturally, because it's like, I worked my ass off. Yep. This is all mine, but in reality, it's not. And then, I guess for me, like, I think about, I worked for a school, so I know all of that is basically like government funded money. But I mean, you think about a store, I don't know, a Foot Locker, for more so say. Sure. They make all of their money on sales, right? So if you really think about it, and think about all the money they bring in, and then you got to think about all the expenses. You be like, okay, it kind of makes sense why I only might make 15 or 20 hours. So if it's 20 employees, we got insurance and all of this stuff, and then they still got to cover inventory and insurance and those type of things. But you are absolutely right.
It's a delicate balance. I didn't, you don't really realize that. That's why I almost feel like everybody should take a leap at some point and try to run a business and to operate something, because, you start at that point where you're just happy to be putting, twice the money in your pocket, but then you quickly realize there's just so many different expenses, and especially in today, almost every business has some sort of technology fees in one form or another. I mean, you add to the website, you add to, inspection software or something in your case. For me, if I'm building websites, I use WordPress a lot. A lot of websites use WordPress, something like 35% of websites, and they all have additional software that gets plugged into that. So, we have some things running on your site that's different, like PDF generators and, just different licensed plugins that cost more money, and you just don't even think about that. And then the difficult part becomes, other people don't really want to hear that necessarily. So if I go to explain that to somebody, and why the bill is so high or why the estimate is so high, they don't even understand or want to understand anything about plugins or licensing. And so you got to find a way to encompass that and explain that it's not just about, what I want to put in my pocket. It's about what I have to put in my pocket in order to maintain those licenses, in order to keep educated, in order to stay on top of it, in order to set certain time aside just so that I can work for you, because it's all just a matter of shifting time around one way or another, and I got to have some sort of guarantee that money's going to be coming. Otherwise, I can't set that time aside, because if I do that and nothing comes of it, then it's almost like I just lost money because I lost all that time, And so people don't necessarily understand a lot of those things just because they've never been through it. When you work a 9 to 5, a lot of that stuff is taken care of for you. You don't have to think
you just got to be there and get paid.
Yeah, even if you work, in a managerial position in a lot of these kind of places, a lot of these systems have already been put in place. They just need somebody to run the show to make sure all the cogs are greased, and you don't really have to sit and think about balancing a budget and understanding what you need to set aside. It's already done for you, and so and a lot of times you don't even see that and where that's going, and so it's easy to think that it could be done better, and sometimes maybe it could, but until you really try and balance something like that, you realize it's not that easy.
No.
But again, it's worth it. It's to me, it's worth learning some of that stuff the hard way. I think you kind of felt the same way I did when we took that leap in the first place, is that we'll always probably be valuable to the labor market. There's no question that if all else fails, you and I could go, especially right now, go get a job, There's no question about it. So that was a big thing in making that jump, and especially now for anybody, it's probably a good time to consider that, but and until you do that, you just don't really know what it takes to run a business, and it just continues to scale. The bigger the business, the more customers you serve, the more you have to add, and if you continue to manage that, then you can still put some money in your pocket, live a good way, and continue to grow a business that can start to feed other people too. And that's where it really starts to grow, is when you can have some other people, you can pay a healthy wage, a happy wage, a comfortable wage, and they can start to do some of the work that you would otherwise be doing, so that you can start to then focus on how to grow the business more and provide more for all the people that have been loyal to you. So, you start to, we've done it for just a few years now, and I look at things very differently.
Yes,
I look at business owners very differently. And I have a whole, just a big respect for people that choose to do it, because it's just not easy, you know. Some business owners fail multiple times.
Multiple times, bro.
It's difficult, and there's a huge level of risk involved, you know. There's definitely no guarantees. But I think we picked solid industries for the most part. Especially with home inspections. Especially with home inspections.
It's crazy, bro. So COVID happened. That was 2020, March. And that was the year I was able to leave my 9 to 5. And a lot of people was like, B, how was you able to do it? I'm like, well, for one, I think my service is unique and different because it's overall essential. Mm-hmm. If you're going to buy a house, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a form of inspection. Obviously, that's why we offer pre-inspections now, because a lot of people are waiving them when they're buying the house. But for that to happen in that year, it gave me like a huge boost of confidence, right?
Definitely.
Not overly confident. I firmly believe in just remaining humble and good things will come to you. But it gave me a boost of confidence, and working, like I said, with my business coach, Chris, having Craig Palmer, who was an actual mentor from Springs Yard, really made that impact and be like, look, this is how we did it. This is how we believe you should do it. Some coaches come tell you, like, and they force you to do it their way, and that's not how Craig or Chris did it. And when they come from that standpoint, you obviously respect it because they're able to share those struggles with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's another piece as business owners and entrepreneurs we have to share more of are those struggles, because some people think that you always win, and that's not the case. Just because you see that I made $5,000 today, I may have $2,200 going out in bills, or so I gotta pay everybody, those type of things. But what may be like some struggles that you think you overdeal with? Like I know you said basically to a certain extent, you said like you underprice yourself.
Yeah.
However, I mean, from my perspective, from my honest opinion, you provide quality work. So like high quality work. So so if that's one of your main struggles, if you just don't mind touching that, just kind of expanding on that.
It's been difficult for me because I have felt like, in some sense, I don't necessarily have the backlog of work, and I think that I do. And I've talked to a few people this year, yourself included, who have helped me to not feel that way, because it just seems like it's not true, I don't.
You made your first website, you was 13.
I just have a tendency to kind of feel, and I feel like we all have to look, generally speaking, to those who are doing things better than we are. That's the only way to get good. If you want to get better as a home inspector and run a better business, you got to look at the home inspection companies that are already doing it and see what are they doing. What could I do more like that? What are maybe they doing that is not exactly a good thing? And you got to be able to pick and choose those things. And so, but I think I have a tendency sometimes to be a little bit hard on myself. And I've talked to a few people that have given me, reason to believe that that's the case, and that I need to just kind of take a step back and look at it more in a sense that I just have to charge more. I just have to get over that, and I just have to do it, And ever since I started doing that, I've had no problems, So it is really a lot of times, I think, just in our heads, you do, and a lot of it is just because, like I said too, it's that fear of losing the job, and sometimes, especially when you're just starting out or when you're making that transition, sometimes you just really feel like you can't afford to, or maybe you can.
I need every dime or penny.
100%. And so maybe I want $1,000, but I'm only gonna throw out an estimate for half that because I'm worried before I even try that this particular client for some reason just is gonna scoff at that. It's gonna go somewhere else, And in some cases, that's what needs to happen. I can't tell you how many times actually I've done something like that. Actually had somebody turn off and go away, and then come back because they went with somebody else that did charge them probably way too little and didn't really do a great job. And then they come back and say, what's going on? And, you know, and then I should have just done it in the first place, you know, but I think it's just kind of a getting over that fear. And some of the things, you know, the hardest part too about what I do as it pertains to websites and things like that is it's really abstract. Most people come to experts like us because they don't really have an idea about what it is they're getting into. You know, they go to a home inspector because they need an expert opinion and they need your set of eyes to look for things that they're just not going to know to look for. And so for me, with websites, obviously they can get pretty technically complicated. So I have to find a really good balance of explaining the things that, you know, people can keep up with and the things that people need to hear with, you know, some of the things that they just don't want to hear and just aren't even going to understand. And it's just going to sound like extra, you know. So there's really a very specific kind of process, I guess, to sales versus execution, and I kind of get caught between the two sometimes. You know, wearing multiple hats. In a perfect world, I might have somebody do sales, or I might be the person just to do sales, and or one way or the other, because it's hard to get in that mindset. And I'm not really a salesperson. You know, I've always, funny enough, been in sales roles. I used to sell wireless. I sold wireless for like 5 years. Obviously, real estate in some sense is a sales position, but I never looked at it as sales, and I knew people that did, and that's why, because, you know, working in wireless, I knew people who really just, you know, wanted to sell. They didn't really care about the person in front of them. They didn't care about whether or not, you know, the decision they were trying to get this person to make was a good one for them or not. They just really wanted to sell what they wanted to sell, and they
over the person.
They did, and they wanted to, you know, to line their pockets, and that always bothered me. I think, you know, I can be a competitive person, and I like a good challenge, but not at the expense of other people, you know. And so, but I never did bad in those positions because I think I came at it from a perspective of trying not to sell people on something, but trying to find a good fit for people. So if somebody's going to buy a cell phone, then I would rather have them buy it from me and be qualified as best as possible, so that they're not spending too much money, they're not spending too little money, their expectations meet reality as best as possible, and, you know, it's a good fit. And so always coming at things from that angle tends to work out, but it can cause conflict sometimes when you're running your own business, because then, you know, those two things don't always align, and sometimes you really got to pry with people to even find out that maybe they're saying something and thinking another, you know. And sometimes it does take those two different roles to kind of to bounce back and forth and figure that out. So that's kind of a struggle that I've had. It's just being kind of having to switch those hats, and having that kind of empathetic side sometimes leave me just not wanting to charge too much, when in reality there's definitely a happy middle ground where I could definitely find some needs and find where I could provide value that maybe this person's just not coming right out and telling me. And I don't want to pry because I'm afraid of selling them something extra that they don't need. But if you don't ever bring it up, then how are you ever going to know? You know, so that's kind of where I've struggled with it personally, and I feel like, you know, you probably have a degree of that yourself too. You know, but a lot of it kind of sells itself with home inspectors. You either need it or you don't, or you want it or you don't.
All right. So for the most part, if my client or a client calls my phone, 80% of them are going to book with Chandler Inspections, go on the website, fill out the form. However, you got those 10 or 20%ers that's just looking to get an estimate. Some people are just basically focused on price. Some people don't care about price. They just want a great job. You got people that really study, and they be coming to me like, oh, I seen that event, or I seen it. I'm like, oh, wow, you really did your research. So, and I appreciate it, because the content that we help create and bring together is the reason why we bring it out there and produce it, right? So
it's nice to know it means something to people.
It's extremely nice to know, bro. And the quality in work, my big thing is really comeback customers, comeback clients. Like, okay, I'm a home inspector. I don't sell cars. I don't do hair. It's not like I repair phones or anything like that. So you're not going to see me every so often.
You don't buy houses very often.
No, and if you do, you're typically an investor or something like that. And still, even then, I may only see you 2 or 3 times a year.
Right.
So for me being able to meet my client for the first time, them having no idea what I'm about to say or how I'm going to say it, and then kind of being able to leave and kind of giving them an overall relief, regardless if there were major or minor concerns. But and that's why I hate to ever accept, and I rarely do. I hate for clients to pay me before I inspect. I need you to pay me at the end of the inspection, so everything I told you was fair ground. I'm not trying to get you for any money. I'm not. And I always tell my clients, I'm not the guy to tell you to buy or to not buy this property. So you have to listen to what I say. And however, at that same token, everybody hear different things. If I tell this client that same exact thing I could have told a client yesterday because it's the same type of situation or same issue, just a different house, that may be a deal breaker for them and the other person. You know what? I can deal with that. And I feel like the good realtors out there know that about their clients, because I had times realtors would be like, hey, just be aware of this client this way. And I'm like, look, I deal with people like that all the time. It's all good. It's all set. But I don't know what my biggest struggle might be. I know at first, or maybe still is to a certain extent, like I said, bringing Marcus on, I had to become comfortable enough to allow him to do his own style of inspections. As long as you get the job done, that's all that matters. But having your own style, and I have to be comfortable with that if I'm going to continue growing the business. And trusting them just because you're not going to do it like me, but they're still going to get that same delivery.
Results.
And that's all it's about, is the results at the end of the day. So, and good results at that, not bad.
Right.
But most definitely, man. And then I at least know, like, for this season, going back to what I said about being a slower season, budgeting, which I still feel like I do really good at. But the hard part is, in the busy season, you may see tons of thousands in the bank account, and then in the slow season, you may only see 1 or 2, a couple thousand in the bank account. So it's like, man, where all this money go? But it fluctuates. Money comes and it goes. It's an overall currency. And I want to say that's the beauty about the business, because, like, if it was booming every day, all day, I don't think I would lose my hunger for it, but you still get comfortable to a certain extent. So for me to be like, man, I didn't get no inspection calls this week, but then next week I get 10, and then so it's just an overall blessing, man, for sure, bro.
This time of year has been strange as a business owner in general, or just being self-employed, because when I used to work, I usually worked retail. I mean, we worked every Black Friday. We worked usually on the day before Thanksgiving, sometimes even on Thanksgiving. We worked on Christmas Eve a lot of times. This December was like the busiest time of the year, although it's like the complete opposite. I noticed as a business owner, for entrepreneurs, it's almost like we all kind of shut down, or a lot of people do.
Unless you own like a retail or boutique or something.
Exactly. Unless you own something like that. It's almost hard sometimes not to get caught in that. I have to tell myself, sometimes I'm not there yet. I need to work just as hard through November and December as the rest of the months. It's not time to shut down, because if I just start goofing off, then I have to look at it as money lost, not money not earned. It's money lost. Every hour counts, even if that's just making sure to put my pen to paper 5 to 8 hours a day. I gotta really remember that, because it seems a lot of times like everyone around me, at least people that are successful so far in business, have this opportunity to kind of wind down a little bit. And I envy that part of me, but part of it is just is we hope to get there, and to be able to put ourselves in a position that we have people that work for us, that are, hopefully we can not put them to work on holidays. There's usually no need for any of that. and being in inspections and in real estate in general, it's not really a lot going on around Thanksgiving. There's not really a lot going on around Christmas. It does really slow down quite a bit, so you can kind of expect that and know that that's and hopefully and kind of plan for it. You never know, sometimes it might be busier than others, but it's tough, man. It's been hard not to past couple of years kind of get caught in that, especially last year. I feel like with even some of the COVID things just kind of lingering. The whole year kind of felt like that. It was hard a lot of times not to get caught in that in some sense, but that's been difficult. So I think I've been doing better at it so far this year, but we'll see. We got Christmas in a couple weeks, and that's going to be something that'll be in the front of my mind. It's just trying to stay productive. But also, we got to give ourselves a little bit of a break sometimes too. It can go a little bit too far the other way too. If you get burned out, that's not good for anybody either. It's never good for anybody, Then you just don't do as good of a job, and nobody wants that,
Agree. I can contest to say that during our slow seasons that we actually do work, good together, and we actually create an overall plan or agenda.
Yeah.
And that's another beauty or another, special part about being an entrepreneur. Kind of going back to what I said about the illustration piece, for us to be able to continue to add to that picture year by year by taking last year's results, seeing what we did good, excelling on that, seeing what we did bad, changing that up, and continue to grow. So,
very true.
Even though we may not have a lot of leg hours and labor at that time, we still have to mentally think and be like, okay, going back once again, just being a future forward thinker and being like, okay, this month I got to do this, and really setting those goals and expectations for ourselves and different things like that. So, if you don't mind me asking, Korbin, and just kind of sharing with all of our viewers, what was maybe one main reason why you wanted to become an entrepreneur? Do you think that was something that you caught upon? Was it caught upon you? And if so, what was the overall reason for it?
Yeah. I think there's a couple reasons. Personally, I like a lot of people, I think I get really burned out of having the same schedule all the time, and I found that I always, generally speaking, kind of have the same schedule. It gets very repetitive, and that never really sat well with me. The more and more I did it, especially, the more I just thought, to myself that, I'm always thankful for having a good job, but I just always felt like I could do better. I see plenty of people doing it and just think, and the more I started to think too, I think what really got to me is, I started to do the math, and I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily. I started to do the math. I started to look around and say, look, if I get 40 hours a week and I sell this much, if I was in wireless, we had a little bit of a commission structure or whatever, but, within reason, I could kind of figure out this is the most I can reasonably expect to make in a year. And the more I kind of thought about that, the more I thought, I'm not really comfortable with that. I'm not really comfortable with saying this is what I'm worth and nothing more. And then if you take that a step further, you think, well, maybe look around and depending on where I'm at, what are some of the positions I can move my way into if those are available, And I started to look at those things and some of those positions, and while some of them definitely look better, in some ways they look worse, and with some of them, most of them, there still is some sort of a ceiling on that. And I thought, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to put a ceiling on what I'm worth? If I'm able to do something bigger than that, then I owe it to myself to try. And aside from that, and some people, in my life have definitely kind of looked at it as a pipe dream, but I have always been very drawn to monetizing creative endeavors, ever since I was a kid, one way or another, whether it was, and I've always been into different things, whether it was music or art, as it pertains to photography or video or whatever it may be. I've always been drawn to those things, and in the world that we live in now, more and more it's possible to monetize those things in so many different ways, and it does definitely take time. It takes consistency. It takes drive. And there's really no telling sometimes for people how long that takes. But for me, I just came to a point where I would rather pursue that for the rest of my life if I had to, and enjoy the time doing that, than I would be to, to work for somebody else and pursue an agenda that's just not mine, And I always, no matter what I did, I always put my all into it, whether I was working for somebody else or doing something for myself. I just don't do anything without, giving it 100%, or I just don't do it. I've just always been that way, for better or for worse, And it got to a point where the more I started to think about that ceiling, the more I started to think about the progress I could make and how long it might take, I honestly started to feel like I wasn't able to give it 100%, and that didn't sit well with me, because I don't think that's right. If somebody's going to pay me to do a job, I'm either 100% there or I'm not, and I started to feel like that just wasn't the case. And I'll be honest, some of my last maybe half a year or so of the last job that I was at, I wasn't all there 100%. I was even at that job sometimes. Taking real estate training, getting ready to prepare to get my real estate license, which was a little bit dishonest in some sense, There's other things I could have been or should have been doing, but, I just didn't have my head in the game. I saw, kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, and I did use that opportunity for a little while to just kind of to shift out of that environment, and I did it as quickly as possible, because honestly, and I know a lot of people are in this position, I didn't, working that sort of job, I didn't have savings, working paycheck to paycheck.
Can't save when you live, bro.
No, and I couldn't just quit, and then take the time to do that real estate training or to do something. The only thing you can really do in a situation like that a lot of times is jump to another job.
Yeah.
And that might be it for some people. I know some people for sure that just need to switch jobs, and then they get into that job and everything is better, but I did enough jumping around to different jobs, and I don't think I was ever at a job for more than a couple of years, generally speaking. Wireless had me for a little longer, but even then I did about 2 years, jumped out into something else, and then came back because I actually liked the job that I had, funny enough. But it just occurred to me, I just turned 30, and I've been working in, whether it's food or retail, since I was 16. And I've tried so many different things. Yes, I feel like I gave it, I gave it enough of a try. Yeah, I gave it enough of a try, and I just realized, maybe, obviously that's not for some people, because some people don't do it. So maybe I'm just one of those people, and I owe it to myself finally, about little over 3 years ago, to just decide to just give it a try, just see what happens. And like I said, knowing full well that at the end of the day, I never burned any bridges. I never ruined any relationships, knowing full well I could go back to almost any job I ever had or start something new, probably just like that, So with that said, that was kind of what pulled me off, and I don't regret any bit of that so far, and I would do just about anything to not go. I've done a little bit of Uber, I've done some food deliveries and things where I've had, when I've transitioned or when I've hit points where I just haven't had any business or whatever, and I would do that as much as I could before I went back to having that 9 to 5. It gets harder and harder the further we get along. So yeah, what about you? What got you? You only had the one real full job at City, right?
Yeah. Well, I started doing security for City High Middle School 2018. I graduated from Ferris that spring. Mm-hmm. So when I first graduated, I was working 2 on-call positions, one at Kent County and then one at Ottawa County Juvenile Detention Center. Okay. I left Ottawa County Detention Center because my cousin was actually a director at United Methodist at the time. So it was like a parent, coach, basically something just to do to be in the building overall. But she was honest with me, and I was honest with her, because she kind of told me to pay. I'm like, well, it was like $15 an hour. I'm like, well, this is only going to be temporary, or anything like that. So I ended up getting that job there at the school that January, and then I ended up having to leave juvenile. It was just kind of too much to handle, unfortunately. I bet. And then doing that full time, bro. But I really loved my job. I liked what I did. However, that basically before COVID shut down, before COVID, those last few months, man, I used to clock into work maybe 10, 15 minutes early when I first got there. Yeah. I used to get my first, couple paychecks. I'm like, this cool. And then I wanted to start saving, investing. And I was like, damn, I don't have any money to do that. I have no money. Kind of going back to what you said, I felt like I deserved to owe myself to invest in myself.
Yeah.
And some people take that as arrogance. Some people take that as brag. But I think we all, as individuals, I think that's a class they should teach about just self, what you owe yourself.
And worth.
Yeah, and your worth and my value, bro. And nobody, no job could give me that. You know what I'm saying? So, channel inspections allowed me to do that, bro. It allowed me to continue building confidence in myself. It continued, like I was able to do so many things that as a teenager and as a young adult I wanted to do and think out, but I just couldn't do that being held underneath a damn table my whole career until I was able to experience this entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So, and then when I got in Spring GR to meet people who had like-minded, when we first got connected, to see where our relationship has grown in 3 years. And many of, you know what I'm saying, my colleagues and stuff like that. So, I remember some realtors, when I first met them, they were probably very, anxious on giving me their first inspection. Now they're super comfortable with just saying, hey, Brian, or this is Brian, he's going to take care of you.
Yeah.
So trust is really big with me. And for channel inspections to be able to develop that over years, I don't think I would have got any of that self-satisfaction working a 9 to 5. Other than where I was at, I was working with kids and seeing them graduate, seeing them grow up. I was like, man, that was kind of bringing the youth out of me, which I'm not old or wasn't old at the time, but it just kind of kept me pushing, knowing that life was always bigger than me. And if I was going to stay at GRP, if I was going to stay there and continue to do security, I was not going to be able to give myself what I needed and what I wanted to be able to give back to those who deserve it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And as large of a scale, because it definitely, just like the same thing, there's definitely a ceiling there. There's only so much you can make, and then you sit and figure out. So you're telling me I set all the time I can aside. I set all this time aside, and that's it. That's all I can make. And I don't, I got this has got to go here, this has got to go here, and by the end of the day, I got pennies left.
What if I want to take a vacation?
Yeah.
What if I want to go to Brazil next year? I have no means of doing that unless I eat ramen noodles every night.
Nothing. Exactly.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, bro. But I don't think neither of us or any entrepreneur who's really doing it, and even if you're not doing it right now, continue to believe in yourself.
Definitely.
And know that I don't think nobody, neither my dream or your dream, nobody believed in your dream more than you did.
That's true.
And we can't expect nobody to.
That's right. Yeah, you almost have to convince them. That's part of the gig.
Yeah.
You almost have to show them, because a lot of people struggle with that, because having a job is a sense of security. Having that paycheck every 2 weeks, even though it might not get you rich, might not get you that vacation, it is security, and that's the hardest part about it. You basically leave insecurity to go into the unknown, and it's chaotic, it's difficult, it's stressful. There's been times, bro, that I don't even know how I've paid my rent, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Especially early starting out. You just kind of jump into it, and it either starts working or it doesn't, and it definitely started working, but you just kind of learn along the way what to do, what not to do, and it's just like a job almost, in a sense. You start a new job, and there's all sorts of new territory. You're not sure of the lay of the land at all, so it's really no different than that. But definitely, I would encourage anybody, especially more. It just seems more and more like with technology and some of the things people are getting into. There's some crazy ways out there to be an entrepreneur and to make money in the digital world. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be something that you need to leave your job for. And this is one thing I struggled with, and I know a lot of people that do, because it is hard. You can start something while you're working full time.
Yes.
It is extremely difficult, and you will make sacrifices.
Yes.
You might make sacrifices in your family life. You might make sacrifices with your friends. Instead of going out to drink on the weekend, you might stay home and build your business, and that's going to be difficult, because you're going to spend all your time at work, sleeping, and building your business, and you're not going to have a lot of time to have fun, and that's going to seem like a bad time. But you do that for just a short time, and it can pay off, and it will pay off, and then you can start to make those transitions. And there's lots of ways to do it, but it's so difficult to do when you're exhausted from working a full-time job, and I've struggled with that. And then you get in this kind of rhythm of, I can't do that, I've been working all week, and you really could, but you just don't want to, you could, but just to spend that extra time is just, I'd rather watch Netflix or something, play some Madden or something, it's just difficult. But, to anybody listening, you could do that too, and it is, and I think more and more too, a lot of people are gonna partner up, so that can have its own struggles for sure. You definitely want to get somebody that you you can trust, or that you hope you can trust, and hope that works out. But more and more, I think it's easier for people to collab and to do things together, whether that's with a friend or spouse. I see a lot of that happening. People are good at some crazy things too. I know people that can make amazing things with their hands and have started online stores and things like that. That just, even, if you're living that paycheck to paycheck and you're working 40 hours a week and you just don't have any more bandwidth, but you can squeeze just a little bit out, and you can make $200 to $500 extra a month. You're going to start to be able to put that in somewhere or do something, or even just be able to feel like, maybe I can get somewhere with this. Maybe I can turn this 500 into 1,000, and then 2,000, and then 4,000, and then get rid of the full-time job and start to replace that. I didn't necessarily go that route. I saved just a little bit of money. I made the transition. I kind of just made a leap, and things kind of worked out for me. But that's not necessarily always the way that you have to do it. And you took a little time. You did it the right way. I think you were working, and you worked when you needed to work, and then you got your license, and you started to inspect when you could inspect, and like you said, it kind of just worked out. And that 2020 gave you that opportunity. It was almost a sign in some way. It almost seemed like a sign. I remember talking to you about it. We kind of talked about it, and you were on the fence a little bit. And to me, in the back of my mind, knowing full well that there's always, a good outcome and a bad outcome, I remember doing, go for it, just do it, and here we are.
Yeah, man. So what you had said earlier kind of stuck with me. You was like, some people work, they 9 to 5, they get off, they're super exhausted, and it's hard for them to work on their business. Channel inspections was my out plan. Like, whether if the security officers I worked with, my colleagues, my teachers, everybody knew. If you knew me from the students, Brian was working on home inspections. I ain't talked no security stuff when I was at work. I talked about my exit plan. And not for me, but for the kids who I was around to motivate them. Okay, you in 6th grade, but you're going to be in 12th. What's your exit plan? And you got to work on it now. So for me to have that motivation to be able to do that all throughout, I was just doing security, bro, from, basically 2.5 years for the most part. I kind of feel a little bit longer. You in there with kids 180 days or more out the year. But yeah, man, when I got off, it was a little different story for me. I had a boost of energy. You know what I'm saying? If I had an inspection, if I got off at 3:30, I tell my client I can be there at 4:30. By the time I'm ready to leave, I already got my uniform, my inspection uniform on. They were like, "Oh, Brian, you got an inspection today?"
Yes, I do.
And some people would be shocked, and I'd be shocked myself. But it was coming to a time, I'm literally at work. It was times I'm missing 3 or 4 calls in a week.
That's
I'm like,
hurt.
that's not, after 3 inspections, that was going to be what I made in 2 weeks. So I was like, okay, kind of going with you, like, it was just this overall sign, bro.
It's a sign. Gotta give it a try.
It was my exit. It was my exit, bro. I wouldn't change anything for working while I was working. Doing security taught me a lot about myself. Most importantly, about education and the importance of education. And knowing that you don't have to go to school to get educated. You can be an entrepreneur and do that. There's education. There's so many,
Yeah. That's a tough one. I don't know if you run into this, but I've had, friends and family have been very supportive. But I have had instances where, especially with certain family members and things, where they don't. That's I'm not exactly blowing it out yet. I'm not exactly rolling in it at this point. It's still I'm still trying to. I just kind of locked in what I'm after, and I'm just kind of starting to grow that. So it's definitely taken some time, but I've had some other family that just kind of that doesn't necessarily see that route. They're from a generation that understandably, I mean, university for a while was the way to go. There's no other way to go. If you could get in, that was the way to do it. And I did spend some time in university. I got an associate's degree.
We actually went to the same school. We never
did. Yeah, we went to Ferris. I spent some time at Ferris, and then realized that was pricey. And I barely knew what I wanted to do. I got into Ferris in the first place almost just through kind of pressure. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Believe it or not, when I went to Ferris, they kind of have you declare a major or whatever, even if you change it. I thought I was going to be a teacher, and the reason I thought I was going to be a teacher is just because I had one. People were kind of pressuring me. You got to go to school. You got to go to school. I picked the school I wanted to go to because I thought Ferris, I can probably get in there. And I did, and they just kind of were pressuring me to pick, and I thought, where could I make a difference? That's kind of the only thing that was driving. I thought, I had 2 teachers and all my really one, but I could think of 2 at the time. Through all the schooling I had, elementary, middle school, and high school, I only had 2 teachers that really I could step back and say they really stood out to me. They really made a difference. I thought that's kind of unfortunate because that's a lot of teachers.
It might be like that for every kid. Because I'm thinking I only got 1 or 2 teachers.
And you had a lot of older teachers that that's just how the system works. They try to do it for as long as they can. They get their retirement, and so they stick around and. A lot of them don't necessarily have their head in the game after all that time. And I feel like I caught the tail end of a lot of those educators being in the places that I was. And it was just unfortunate. I didn't have a bad time in school, but I thought to myself, I didn't have a very memorable time in school. I didn't have very many teachers that really made an impact. And so I thought, that could be something. Maybe, I could do that. I could provide that to kids. And so that's the best thing I had. And I could still, a part of me in another life could see me doing that for sure, because I still like the idea. But after a year of basically realizing that I was going to have to go to another 3 or 4 years of basically what I had just did was high school, because to be an educator, secondary educator, that's pretty much what you're doing. You're going back through math and history, and I'm like, I just did this. I'm not doing this again. I don't have the patience for it. So I got out of that, and but anyway, all that to say, I still struggle sometimes. Some of my family will say to me, why don't you go over so and so? They're looking to be hired, or people tell me go see if you can work for Google or something, and it's like I understand that and I appreciate it, because basically, in a roundabout way, what they're saying is, you're so smart, you could go work at one of the best companies out there. And it's like, you're not understanding that. It's like, okay, I'll call Google and say, will you guys let me show up when I want, Will you guys let me set my wage? Will you guys it just doesn't work that way. And that's why I'm on that path. It's not all about the money, It's definitely not all about the money. The money has to come, because the money has to keep the wheels spinning for the business, and so that will kind of dictate what prices are and what money has to come. But really, we just do it because it's something that we're interested in. It's what we want to do, and we want that level of control. So I've had some struggles with that, even though I've had nothing but support. Every now and then I get those little comments and things like, well, why don't you just go do that? Why don't you just go do this and that? And I'm like, cause that's not what. I've done. At this point in my life, I've done enough of the things that I don't want to do, enough to know that those are things that I don't want to do, and that isn't going to change. That's not an attitude problem. It's just that it doesn't engage me. And when you're not engaged, you're not. It's
not going to end up well.
You're just not. So I mean, have you had any? I mean, I feel like your business is just skyrocketed. Like you haven't even given your friends and family any opportunity to tell you to do anything different, because anybody that would tell you to do anything different is crazy. Like, you just had nothing but success for the most part. But have you struggled with that at all? Has anybody still not really seen the vision?
If you didn't see it when I told you about it, you was blind.
Yeah.
The reason I say that, bro, once again, I give myself enough credit to remain humble and remain blessed. there's nothing I never said I was going to do in life and never did it. Going back to what you said, if it's something that I wanted and I told you voluntarily, this is what I'm about to do,
then I do it.
How many times do I have to prove it to you? It is not a proven thing. It's based on energy. When you meet me, it's positivity, it's blessings, it's good times, it's laughter. What bad can come out of that? And I'm gonna produce that same thing into my business, into my clients. That's why our reviews continue to go up, and I feel like that's the reason we had a success rate that Chandler Inspection has. And I appreciate all of the awards, all of the words, you know what I'm saying, all the kind words and words of encouragement, bro. I'm super hard on myself. Sometimes I think the stuff I'm doing now, I should have did last year. You know what I'm saying? But that keeps me going and keeps me flowing. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, man, it, like I said, going back, I wouldn't change it for nothing. And for the most part, a lot of my family members, a lot of friends were supportive. However, support looks different to everybody.
That's true.
Just because somebody's not willing to give you money, that means that's not supportive.
Right.
But somebody coming to your events and saying, "Man, congratulations, keep going."
Just sharing a Facebook post. Even,
exactly, man. And like, I'm hoping I'm able to, motivate all of my siblings, all of my cousins, my entire family, and all of my friends, and any of the kids I used to, at the school where I used to do security. But like I said, I mean, everybody has a different purpose. Everybody's not willing to take that path to find their purpose. I found this out watching BMF, bro. BMF was it's a 50 Cent. It's basically about Big Meech. Big Meech was like this big drug dealer from Detroit back in the 80s or 90s or so. And he said on there, he's like, the worst lie you can tell is like yourself. That's the worst lie you can really tell. And like, if you lying to yourself and being like, man, I know I deserve something better, but I'm not willing to go see what's behind that door. You got to ask yourself, how can you expect life to give you what it really supposed to give you? You're not willing to get that to yourself.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Or if you marry, if you got a best friend, you can't expect nobody to give you the best out of them if you're not willing to take that best out of yourself.
That's true.
And that was a journey I was willing to take. And I thank God, I take my family, I thank you, bro, and the whole Chandler Inspections team to be there with me every step of the way. So that's what I got on that one, bro.
Yeah, I like to think, going way back to something you said, basically I think the energy that we bring and just the mindset that we have, like I said, when it was a sales position for me, it wasn't about sales, it was about qualifying. It was about putting people in the right position, based on what it is that they're after, and I feel like when we encompass our entire business around those sorts of ideas, it just spreads, and sometimes in ways that we won't even know, and I truly believe that the best way to convince somebody of something is really just to do it yourself. It's just to lead by example, because I've tried, so many different times in so many different ways to show people the light, or you almost just want to grab people sometimes and shake them and say, you can do this, But, even if I think about myself, there's definitely times where somebody could have shaken me and told me something, and I just wouldn't have believed it, or I just wouldn't have been, with it for whatever reason. And I think that's because the best way to show somebody the way is just to do it yourself. And those people that are kind of have already kind of looked down that path, or have already thought about it, will see that energy and will just follow it, And there's no way of telling how that light will spread. And I think that for the people that come around us and come to work with us, they'll feel that too. And I think that's, I've worked in enough companies and for enough people to know that when they don't have that, and when the vision isn't about bringing everybody up, and it's not about just kind of doing the right thing and letting everything else fall into place, it falls apart. I've worked at small businesses that have just fallen apart because their heads weren't in the right place. That usually their head is on profit and strictly profit, and that's important for reasons we've already talked about. You have to make sure that you're making enough money, but if that's the only reason you're doing what you're doing, it just falls apart. There's just corruption. There's dishonesty. There's and that goes for the owners down to the people they start to hire. When that is the overall energy of the business, it spreads just as it does if it's positive. It can go either way. So I do think that I think that we've come to exactly the right time at exactly the right place, and I definitely believe in just us as business owners, no matter what we do, because we just bring that energy. We're either in it or we're not, and if we are in it, it's for the right reasons. And I've definitely started to get more in that mindset of kind of knowing that I can do it, and knowing that it's not just about me, and that I can start to provide opportunities for other people where up until now I've been the one kind of taking opportunities for other people. And at a certain point, you just have to decide to flip the script if that's what you want to do, and just start to provide those opportunities instead of taking opportunities. Not that there's anything wrong with taking opportunities, but I don't know that you can always do both. You either have to kind of provide them or you have to take them. And I don't really feel too much as business owners like we haven't taken much opportunity. It's all about finding it and then kind of creating it. You know what I mean? It's not really about taking it anymore. Business, we take businesses. Every business, whether it's an appointment or a website or whatever, is an opportunity. But aside from that, we're not really climbing up the ladder necessarily in that sense anymore. We're kind of setting the ladder down so that other people can start to climb up, and that's a whole different ballgame. It's definitely a whole. You kind of remove yourself from it and realize I gotta act as the business, not just as myself. And it's kind of empowering. It kind of takes some of that. It takes a little bit of that stress off of it too. I think where it's made it easier to just when it comes to like the price is the price. There's a reason for it. It's not just me. It's I have a responsibility to maintain that, because if I don't, the whole thing doesn't work. I've run the numbers. We know. We know.
Did this a few times.
We already know. So man. But I'm looking forward to this winter season too, because like you said, this is a really good time to do other things that we just don't have time to do for the rest of the year. So crunching our numbers, planning for next year, even doing some of the creative stuff like we are here now, starting off the podcast, hoping that we do this for a few months. We'll see success with that, and we won't want to stop it when the summer comes, and we'll have every excuse in the world to not be able to find one day in a month, but we'll do it anyways because, we started it off when we had the opportunity to do it, and we'll just keep doing it for the rest of the year. So I'm looking forward to whatever we come up with the next couple months, because I'm sure it'll be more in that creative, productive, area while things are a little bit slower. And if things pick up, we'll take that too, We'll never not take that. So
yeah, I think so. Being a business owner and not taking care of your people or creating opportunities is just like being a homeowner and only fixing the roof. You only worry about what's on top. You're only fixing your roof or your siding looks nice, but you don't do no updates, plumbing, electrical, your foundation trash, and that's when things start to fall apart. People are like, what happened? So to kind of, like I said, I know at the beginning of the podcast, we kind of went over the overall spill of the things that we're going to talk about. So just somewhat transition more so into home maintenance and more so into the home inspection and real estate field. I know something, since the show's called Under the Rug Podcast, we wanted to discuss the overall under the rug moment. And that's something that every episode, every podcast, that's something that we'll be able to elaborate and kind of discuss. Under the rug is basically me being an inspector, you being in real estate, you being a photographer, pointing out things that just somewhat major and some ugly things that we able to basically unsweep under the rug and really bring to light to our clients. This month is a little different because this what I'll kind of bring up in regards to the under the rug moment is just not something to sweep under the rug or something just to unsweep under the rug, but we'll be actually talking about radon. Radon is an overall natural gas that's in every house if you have a basement, and it basically comes into your house and forms based on the soil that the house was built on. You don't know how high your radon levels are until you get an actual radon test. I can say that majority, when I say majority, like a good 90% of my clients who get or purchase a home with a finished basement typically take my recommendation and say, hey, if you're going to be spending a lot of time down here, it's a really, really good idea to know your radon levels. So forbid your radon levels are high, you can do the necessary things to decrease those radon levels. So that was one big thing I really wanted to discuss kind of in our first week of talking about general safety of the property. Radon is something people don't know about.
Either get swept under the rug.
It basically something that gets swept. It's something basically you don't think it can hurt you because you don't know. But it is one of those things that can hurt you if you don't know.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know that radon is actually the second lead of lung cancer against non-smokers.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So, and I don't think like Florida or Texas, someplace that don't have basements, or even Arizona, have that natural issue. But Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, I mean, you name it. Anything basically in the Northwest, if you dig under that ground, you overall are going to have a radon level. And typically, I think the average in Michigan is 2.41. So even if you have a little bit over average, which is fine, it's really that 4.0 or higher level that can really potential cause cancer long-term wise. It's not nothing that, or if I sleep in the basement with radon, it's not like carbon monoxide to where it just kind of knock you out or kill you over one night.
Right.
This is an ongoing thing. Even if if you plan on living in the house for 3 or 5 years, I would say get a radon test. If you're going to even be living in the house for 2 years, get a radon test. Because nobody exactly knows what type of effect or, that really brings on you long-term wise. So I've been blessed to really open my eyes up because it was something I didn't know about until I got trained. So huge shout out to Sean and Manesty with him kind of helping me doing that, man. He is a real big blessing and peace. And honestly, be looking forward to bring him onto the show one day.
Yeah.
But basically with radon, it takes 48 hours to get your results. So let's say you call me on a Monday and you're like, hey, I want an inspection, but I also want a radon. Let's say the inspection is on Wednesday, but it's Monday. I typically will try to make it out that time because it has to be out basically a whole full 48 hours to get your results. So for example, if I did your inspection on a Wednesday at 9 a.m. and we out the house by 12, but I set the radon machine up at 2 in the afternoon on Monday, you're not going to get no results until 2 o'clock until 48 hours the following day. So saying that, just really being able to educate myself and bring that safety to all of my clients, and just knowing the overall safety and importance for it. I do recommend with those radon, the good thing is when you get those with your full inspections, we actually waive $50 off. So your normal radon test, just say if you wanted one, because you listen to this podcast, you're like, man, I never had a radon test. Those are typically $150. But if you're an actual client, well, all of my clients, but if you're a client that get a full inspection, we do knock off $50 with that. That kind of being maybe one of the overall services of the month or type of deal like that. So, but even talking about some different themes of the week, just some overall safety things. That me and you run to on a regular basis.
Yeah.
First thing, kind of talking about things let's talk about appliances. The simple things as far as a dishwasher. I inspect a lot of dishwashers, and whether if it's in a condo, an apartment, or just a regular townhouse or a home in general, a lot of dishwashers I typically inspect are hardwired. Dishwashers are supposed to be plugged into an outlet socket that's typically connected to a GFI outlet. Those type of things are typically always mixed. I'm not sure why exactly, but they are. But that's the overall safety, especially, you think about dishwashers. Those are the type of things you typically run when you leave the house or when you sleep. And let's say forbid that something start leaking and you get to that hardwire, that can definitely cause some major issues. So just kind of being able to prevent that. But those are like some minor electrical things or safety things in general that we're able to point out during a full inspection. Furnace and hot water heater exhaust. I want to point that out now because a lot of people are spending a lot of time inside of their homes, especially during the winter time. If you got exhaust, so when I say exhaust, basically your overall ventilation for your hot water heater and for your furnace. typically your furnace and your hot water heater is typically ran by gas. So that gas has to be basically exhaust and vented to the outside to make sure you don't get any type of leaks, any type of carbon monoxide, any type of illnesses back into the property. And sometimes I inspect houses, sometimes the exhaust pipes be cracked, be corroded, and these are things that the current owners don't even know about.
Right.
And the reason they don't know, I'm kind of going to my last safety tip for Under the Rug podcast, is they don't have smoke alarms or carbon monoxide detectors.
Yeah.
So minor things like that. And especially, I mean, with, I know at our house now, we got Ring. That's like that alarm thing you can get, right? With the cameras. They got things you can, even with the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, you get 2 for 1, and those actually connect to your Ring alarm. So forbid there's any type of outburst, it actually alerts your phone and automatically calls 911. So that's pretty dope. Well, not 911, but the fire department. You know? So minor things like that. But like I said, those are all minor things that we point out that are extremely minor, but at the same time long-term valuable, because if you don't know, you overall don't know. So Korbin, I mean, we've been at home inspections together now for a few years. Just kind of off the top of your dome, what do you think, out of all the houses you've been in with me with, if you could think of one incident, you'd be like, man, this is kind of crazy. I never thought I'd see something like this before.
A couple things come to mind. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is a little bit, we were in this one together in both sense. These were friends of mine that you did the inspection for. It's one of my first couple of deals.
Yes, sir.
Addicts usually do not get the attention that they deserve, and what we ran into there was what you had said was, and still to this day, is some of the worst mold that you'd ever seen in an attic before. And this older lady was selling the house, I think downsizing, and she had no idea. She had no idea that this mold was in her attic, and I wish we had pictures to throw up at the moment. Maybe we could find them, but it was an incredible amount of mold. And it turns out that it wasn't necessarily a deadly mold per se, but for me, I think, man, the first thing I think is I'm allergic to enough things that I would see the consequences of that. I would feel the consequences of that if I was living in that house. And it seems like very often when we go on inspections together, there's mold in attics. There's very poor ventilation causing the mold in there. A lot of times we talk about under the rug. How many times have we seen a fan in a bathroom vent into the attic that just goes into the attic?
Almost every week, bro.
Almost every week, which is terrible. It's a terrible thing to do. I mean, you're basically just pushing what's probably warm, humid air, right, into the attic, and then it's not going anywhere.
And it's already hot in the attic.
So it's just going right into the attic, and really it's supposed to go all the way through the attic and out the house. Otherwise, there's really no point in even having that. It might even be doing, in some sense, more harm than good. It's a little bit ironic. So I would say that's one of the worst things. I mean, aside from just the mold and the ventilation issues, we obviously see roof sheathing is almost a rarity. Which, if you're going to do a roof now, is a necessity. You're going to have roof sheathing. It almost seems like 9 out of 10 houses we inspect don't have any roof sheathing. And the sad thing is, not all of them are old roofs. A lot of them we've seen have been replaced in the last 5 to 10 years or so. And then
the styles of homes be older, though.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that it's one of those things. I'm not going to speak for any particular roofers or any roofing companies, but it's hard not to look at that and think, did they sweep that under the rug? Did they know that was something that they should do? Did they offer that to the homeowner?
Did they get paid for the wood?
Did they get paid
and never put the wood up
Even
there?
worse, did they pay for that? And because how often as a homeowner do people take a peek in their attic? Not very often. Not at all in a lot of cases. I don't know
one homeowner I have ever talked to
that has ever done
had ever said, man, I check my attic on a yearly basis.
No,
never.
Not ever. Which really it sounds worse than it is, right? I mean, you could definitely be selective about when you look as a homeowner, like say for instance, in the winter when snow is melting after a heavy rain, you might consider popping your head in the attic
to catch a
just
leak
to
or
see,
something.
you know, shine a flashlight around. You don't got to go necessarily walking around up there. That's what you could pay Chandler Inspections to do. But you know, if you got a safe step ladder or a safe way to take a look in your attic and just poke your head around, you might consider doing that because
you owe yourself that in your house.
And definitely the only reason now after hearing this that you might not is because you're afraid of what you might find. And I wouldn't encourage using that as a reason not to, because it's only going to get worse because the roof is like the armor for the rest of the house, and if you're gonna let that in, it's gonna start to get farther, and it's gonna cause more problems. So, you know, even if the best you can do is a cheap patch on a hole in the roof, you're better off to know that it's there and do it, and know that, all right, it's time to start setting aside some money because we're gonna have to fix this. This is a problem, you know. And so I think, you know, we'll save. There's plenty of others. We'll save them for another time. But I would say that's the first that comes to mind. Just overall, I feel like we're often a little bit disappointed in what we find when we start looking in the attics in a lot of these older houses. It's one way or another. It's not very often we look around and go, "This is exactly how it should be," you know. So that definitely stands out to me. Definitely.
I totally remember that house.
Yeah.
Comstock Park area, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, I remember that house. I remember walking in. So the attic, obviously wood is brown. So when I got into the attic, everything was black. And I said, man, I have never, I mean, you've seen the pictures. I've never seen that much mold ever inside of an attic or just in general. So yeah, and that was one of my first, that had to be one of like my first 30 houses.
That was early.
For sure 50, but I want to say that was for sure in my first year.
I want to say it was still cold out. I want to say it might have been winter.
I want to say fall.
It could be.
I think that was more so fall.
It could be. I think by the time they closed, it was probably winter. So that could have been probably like fall of 2019 would have made sense. Something like that. Late summer, early fall, or something like that. Because I think they closed when the snow started flying. But man, that was a blessing that we found that. I mean, they got that taken care of. I mean, one thing you definitely should know as a buyer is don't buy that. You know, that's not a problem that you should be buying. You know, if you find something like that.
Because you said that ended up being like super expensive, correct?
Oh, that I want to say was about $4,000 to $5,000. That was an expensive mitigation. I mean, there's only really two things you could do: rip it out and start fresh, which would have been even more expensive, or clean every square inch of it. You know, and so they did clean every bit of it because it would have been basically a new roof. Otherwise, it was so bad. And so, and they did a good job. I think that was Dan. I cannot remember the name of his I think he might be on our referral list still to this day, maybe. But he did a great job. And I would never, as a buyer, I would never let anybody tell me to buy that, because you got to understand, now that that's been found, the seller has a responsibility to disclose that. And she may not have, and it seems like certainly didn't have any clue. As we said, most homeowners never stick their heads in their attic. And in some cases, that might be lucky for them, but really, a good inspector should find that, and we did. And when we found that, I mean, the seller now has to decide to either, kind of pay to fix that, whether it's out of the proceeds of the sale or whatever, or just work something out, because if that seller goes to relist that, now they have a legal obligation to say on their seller's disclosure that we got mold in the attic and a lot of it. And I mean, when it's that bad, especially, really you can't expect that you're going to hide it and get away with it anyhow, because it was everywhere. And I know, sometimes it's not quite that bad. It might just be a little bit starting out here or there. But no, almost every square inch of that attic was covered in mold. And so they got it cleaned out. They got it covered. The transaction went well. And they're happily ever after in that home so far. But that was an interesting one, because, like you said, that was early for you. that was I have not closed on many houses. So that was early for me. I didn't know what to expect. Thankfully, I had my partner Eldon to kind of fall back on and say, "What the heck do we do here? Because this is bad," you know. And he kind of put that into perspective for me that, you know, they definitely have a problem here, but the seller really has the problem. It's not so much.
It's not the buyer
right now
with
the buyer. Now it is possible they could have taken that route. They could have definitely said, you know, forget about it. We're not going to pay it. You know, you guys don't need to buy it, and we'll go our separate ways. That could have happened, but you know, that's taking the chance that somebody's going to come in and want to pay that, and that's in addition to the house. And not many people are necessarily going to want to do that, even in this crazy market, you know, and everybody's going to look at that different. Some people might see that as no choice other than a full replacement, and that would have been a whole other story. But it was possible to be cleaned. It was cleaned out really well, still held to this day as far as I understand. And then they were able to get some proper ventilation in there, so hopefully that does not happen again, because undoubtedly that is why that happened. You know, there's not proper ventilation in that attic. So, and I think they'd even found us a little bit in the basement, now that I think about it too, because they had some, they had some heat, and it did. I think it went right through the ducts and everything, but they were able to clean that out, and obviously just keep a dehumidifier down there, because a lot of these basements just tend to be a little bit moist. We find that I would say is number two. We find sometimes, remember just a few weeks ago, I remember whether it was intentional or not, we pulled out some things from a wall and found
I do.
Quite a bit of mold behind that.
Remember that.
Now, whether that was coincidence or not, you know, or whether that was an intentional under the rug or accidental,
I do remember that.
That one was definitely under the rug. I'm glad we found that, because that was in the drywall, if I'm not mistaken.
That wasn't the drywall, and that's not our first time finding the drywall. Because remember, it was a couple a while back, and remember I had moved. It was just a little container. Well, not a container. It was just I don't know what to call it.
It was in that closet under the stairs?
Underneath the stairs.
Exactly,
and I had to move something out. I was like, I smell something.
Yeah.
And it was attic, and it was mold everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
and we found, I think we kind of determined from there that they must have had some water in that basement, and that was just a spot that they didn't get to, or for whatever reason they got to it and they thought they dried it out, but then they shoved that stuff in the corner, and you know that was just a recipe for molds. Maybe they didn't know that. You know, hopefully they didn't know that. You know, but then once we kind of found that, and we started putting the pieces together, I remember looking around at the rest of it and thinking, I think there might have been some water in this basement now that we look at it, you know, and I don't remember if there was any of that under the disclosure or what, but yeah, I definitely remember that one too, because that was nasty.
When you really inspect the house, everything tells a story. The roof's going to tell you the story about the attic. The attic's going to tell you the story about the overall framework, the structure. Same thing for the foundation, for electrical and plumbing. It all kind of tells a story, especially the older the house. So that's why sweeping them things under the rug kind of never really works out long-term wise. Even if you don't end up owning the property every 15 years, somebody's still going to have to deal with that. Which is super unfortunate. I like what you mentioned earlier about our referrals. When I started Chandler Inspections, I was always looking, and you helped me with the process of really being able to insert things to the business that was really, like I said, our whole goal is, and our whole slogan is to prepare home buyers to become better homeowners. And it was like, how do we really do that? So being able to really connect with licensed plumbers, HVAC, contractors, roofers, foundation specialists. Huge shout out to Tim Doyle, really good guy, foundation specialist, who really taught me a lot over this time. And saying that, bro, it's like a home is a home, man, at the end of the day, and you gotta overall take care of it, bro. No ifs and buts about it. So it is. So but going back to the referral is being able to connect with all of those businesses and contractors and tradesmen, and now being able to refer them to my clients on all of their reports. So that has definitely been a help and a benefit and a value to all of our clients for sure.
Definitely.
And then I guess just like an overall maintenance text tip for this month or for this session right now, we know we spend a lot of time once again in the house. Everybody, if you're in Michigan, you're running that furnace. You're running some type of heater, but definitely a furnace. Any type of gas furnace right now. Just keep in mind that you need that filter change every 3 or 4 months. If you got a pet in the house, I recommend every 3 months. If you don't, every 4 to 6 months is pretty fine. But doing those minor maintenance things, being sure to get those major items as far as your furnace service once a year by a licensed or professional HVAC company or specialist, which we also, like I said, we do have on the referral list. Definitely. And different things like that as well. Just kind of wrapping up with our overall home maintenance piece. So to kind of wrap up here, just with our first session of Under the Rug podcast, maybe just kind of talking about a goal for yourself or Definitely. For your business, something so next time we reconnect, we can follow up with that goal and see how exactly what we're doing.
Definitely. For me, I definitely have something in mind, and so I'm gonna give this a try, and I'll definitely have a report by the next one. I've been seeing a lot of people in different industries, mostly tech industry, marketing, things like that. Some of the things that I do, believe it or not, are having some success with what they're calling cold emails, and that's just as a kind of a method to generate leads, basically. So it's been interesting for me to say. I mean, I'm always kind of digging online and trying to be in circles of people that are doing the same thing I'm doing to kind of see what's working. And to me, it kind of seems like email is dead, and I don't have any. That's just me saying that. I don't have any numbers to back that up. It might just be me kind of being a Scrooge on the subject, but I find email in general to be cumbersome and sometimes inconvenient these days. Most things are kind of transitioning into text message, and that has its own set of problems sometimes too. Nothing's perfect, but. I just see email eventually kind of going the way of the dinosaur, but maybe that's just me, because what I've been hearing is that some people in the industry specifically that I'm in are having some success with just what they're calling cold emails, which is just the same as kind of like cold calling, meaning picking up the phone, calling a stranger, and trying to get that business, trying to get a lead, trying to get an appointment, something like that. And so I've been kind of digging into that because, I mean, cold calling is one thing that's difficult. A lot of people struggle with that. I've struggled with that a little bit because I don't want to feel like a burden. I don't like to impose on people's time, even though it's very necessary. I mean, people don't know what you have to offer if you don't tell them. So, sometimes you just got to get over that. But it's just not comfortable for me necessarily. I've never been much of a door knocker or a cold caller. That's one reason real estate outside of like friends and family was difficult for me, because I don't really want to force business in that sense. That's difficult for me. But something about the idea of doing that via email doesn't seem as bothersome to me. It doesn't seem as cumbersome. And funny enough, what people seem to be having success with is keeping those cold emails as short and sweet as possible, which is right up my alley. So it's something I've been kind of digging into the past couple months, enough to where it's time to stop digging into it and start doing it. So I'm going to try that this next month. I'm going to reach out. We'll see. I might get mixed results with the holidays. Obviously, some people shut the emails off and everything, but I want to experiment with that. We've got plenty of local businesses around here in Rockford or Grand Rapids area, and I got plenty of competition, but I don't know that my competition's doing that. So, and I know that there's lots of people in the area that could use services that I could offer. So I want to give it a try, because, even though business has picked up a little bit the last month or two for me, the more that I can pick up, the more that I can start to bring on other people to start to work with. And, I can definitely have the bandwidth for that. So that's what I'm going to try. I want to try to at least land a couple of appointments by doing that, and just see how it goes for me. If it doesn't work out, it's pretty low friction. Just send some emails. Maybe at the very least, I'll make some connections and get some referrals, or maybe somebody will tell me to go to hell. I don't know, but either way, it'll be
either way it's gonna work out.
Either way, it's gonna be action. So that's kind of one way I think I want to take action. So I'll set a goal of just seeing if I can get a couple of appointments that way, or just get some responses from local business owners doing that. So we'll see how that goes. What about you? What do you got for the month?
My goal for the month, like I said, this being December and just kind of wrapping into the new year, is just continue developing different tactics, different strategies, continue improving the business from a marketing standpoint, from a quality to a customer, to just staying in contact with realtors to a referral standpoint. And like I said, just contributing to that, not just to more sales, but like I said, the overall effect and quality of work we're able to produce to all of our clients. One thing I'm super excited, I know all by next year, Marcus pretty much be wrapped up with everything. With training now, he's pretty much set, all
shout out
to
to
go.
Marcus. Marcus
shout
is
out
killing
to
it.
Marcus is, man.
Yeah.
Marcus has taught me a lot
That's
about
awesome.
myself within a few months we met. So to meeting him in the summer, for him to take this opportunity and this craft as serious as he has taken it, and to show that to me, I mean, it's just been a blessing. Just because all year I've been looking for somebody to continue to help me grow this company. So yeah, huge shout out to him. And then kind of just some minor things that we got going on, doing some minor website and report updates, those type of things and stuff like that. And then also just finishing up the year strong. I feel like when I worked for the school, you had that overwhelmed feeling in May and June.
Yeah.
Because the school year is wrapping up. But for me as an entrepreneur now, I got that same somewhat overfilled or overwhelming when, okay, it's October, okay, it's November, but you have to continue pushing through and you have to continue to strategize for next year, because if it's not, January, February, March gonna be here and you're gonna be lost in the sauce. So just continue to stay focused, bro, and to stay positive, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, good, man. I think this was a successful first run. Hopefully, I think what we talked about this before. What we'll probably do, we're definitely gonna have a website up and running here by the time this launches. On that, we'll definitely have links to our businesses, any offers that we have going on, things like that.
Yes, sir.
And I think aside from that, definitely what we'll do is probably put a quick form on there if anybody wants to join us in the next conversation. We'll start taking that information. We'll see how many people sign up. We're planning on doing one a month.
That's the goal, man.
If there's more demand for it than that, then that we've definitely left it open for that as well. But we'll just see where this goes. Hopefully we can help somebody out with it. Hopefully people will listen that can relate. And hopefully we can just do the same thing we do for business, kind of spread the joy, spread the love, spread the wealth, spread the energy into this podcast. And I think we had a good first run of it. Definitely.
And that'll be a wrap.
That's
Under
a
the
wrap.
Podcast.
Yeah.